Good afternoon. I'm Ann Bishop, Executive Director of Texas Public Employees Association. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today on the Department of Information Resources budget. It is truly, truly my pleasure to comment on the budget. 1991. I left the state in 1991 as Executive Director of Department of Information Resources and went to the private sector. And I went to the private sector primarily, not because I didn't love the state. I always loved the state, and I continued to love state employees and state agencies, but I was at the top of my pay scale. And being 32 years old and being at the top of your pay scale, there was nowhere for me to go. So I had to leave to go somewhere else to be able to support my family, my children, and myself. And the private sector was good to me. It was very good to me. I spent 12 years in the private sector, but I always wanted to come back. And I appreciate the professionalism and the evolution of the agency, and I'm so proud to be a small part of it for the years that I was there. But I highly recommend that not only in this agency, which the state auditor, by the way, did recommend in their recent report about executive compensation, that you look at increasing the executive director's authority for her compensation. We don't want to lose people to the private sector, and whether we're talking about the executive director or all state employees. It's no secret I talk about state employees a lot and their salaries. Of course, the last across-the-board pay raise was September 1st, 2014, and since then there's been a 27% decline in purchasing power since then. And I recognize this agency is funded differently, as well as some of the other agencies, but I will also tell you, as an executive director of ERS, where we were funded differently as well, that agencies play nice. They cannot get too far out of the classification scale with their salaries, or obviously there are repercussions and there are issues associated with it. So when we talk about across the board or all employees, we want you to make sure that the authority there and the budget is there for agencies who are also funded a little bit differently. I also wanted to talk a little bit about remote work. I know this is not your category of items, but it is a very important workforce issue. And that is, the pandemic did something good. And what it did, in part, was to allow a different way of working. And sometimes it's actually a more efficient way of working. You can track employees' productivity. You can track what they're doing. You can track customer service, and yet at the same time not have distractions while you're doing remote working, whether it's from your home or another office, or as I was in the hall of the Capitol a while ago. It's an important aspect of work these days. And not only is it important for existing state employees, but it is also important to attracting new state employees. I've had this experience myself in trying to hire people when they ask, do you have an option to do remote work? And if you say no, they won't come. So having the opportunity to at least have some remote work for the people that it is appropriate for, and it's not appropriate necessarily for every position. It should be determined by the agency and what their needs are. But having that as an opportunity is an important workforce benefit in terms of being competitive with not only the private sector, but other governmental entities. I'm happy to answer any questions and provide any information, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.